It was meant to be a quick drive home. I had visited my grandmother in the country, a little village nestled deep in northern Montana. I left her residence just after 9 p.m., hoping to get home around midnight. The sky was crystal clear. The moon was shining bright. The GPS indicated 2 hours and 37 minutes. Something occurred on the drive home. Something that I can't describe. Around 40 minutes from the start of the drive, my GPS malfunctioned. The screen froze, then turned black. I thought I'd just turn it on later and continued driving on the road I knew. That was my initial error. The woods grew denser on either side of the road, trees looming taller than I could recall. The temperature fell abnormally quickly, mist gathering over the road like grasping fingers, and the mile markers disappeared. I'd driven down this road dozens of times, but not today. Today, there were no signs. No markers, no lights. Only the rumble of gravel beneath my wheels and increasing certainty that I was no longer on my familiar path. And then I saw her. A barefoot girl in a white dress, standing alongside the road, pale, looking straight at me. I slammed on the brakes. I rolled down the window and peered into the woods. But as the car pulled to a stop, she was nowhere to be found. Just this oppressive feeling in my chest, like something was looming behind the trees, watching me. I figured it was my imagination. Or maybe I had dozed off for a second. Quiet. Nevertheless, I was able to execute a U-turn and reverse the way I had come. No wind, no car radio, no crickets. I attempted to reverse the car, but the steering was stiff. That's when I noticed my own tire marks, going back and ahead. The footprints in the ground were genuine, but they didn't add up. They looped back on themselves in an identical circle, as if I'd been driving in a circle I hadn't even noticed. I pulled over and stepped out with a flashlight. I climbed in and drove in a straight line, heart racing. And then I caught sight of a figure in the rearview mirror. Not moving, not standing, sitting in the back seat. No one. I turned around. The seat was vacant, but the outline of someone having sat was still indented in the cushion. I continued driving, now holding the wheel so hard my fingers ache. Then the radio suddenly came on by itself. White noise, just there, waiting. Then a soft voice on it. The bag was old, worn, thick with dried mud. Inside, I discovered an ID card. You shouldn't have turned around. I turned it off. I don't recall how long I drove. The fog got heavier, and time seemed to stand still. No cars, no towns, no stars. I zipped up the bag and got back into the car. I didn't care where I was going anymore. I just wanted to go. And then I saw a road sign. A solitary, rusty sign off the road that read. I stopped at a gas station, ran in, and asked the attendant what town I was in. Mile 31, but that was impossible. Landslide wiped out that part of the forest. You'd have to take Route 6 now. The last sign I should have seen was Mile 18. There was no Mile 31 on that highway. One wooden bench beside a dead tree, no trail to it. I stopped again, this time alongside a clearing that seemed oddly set up. On the bench was a backpack. I emerged, going against every impulse in my body, and approached it. Jason Lormer. Age 27. Missing since 2015. I knew the name. He too had vanished on that road. His car was discovered abandoned. The crime remained unsolved. I won't stop this time. I share it because that road still exists on some nights, hidden under time, only manifesting itself to individuals who make the wrong turn at the wrong moment. My hands began to shake. The fog dissolved after about 15 minutes, and I was on the highway again, city lights in the distance. He replied, "You're just outside of Sheridan. You all right, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." I inquired as to how far I was from Mile 18. He frowned. Mile 18? That stretch of road's been shut down for years. I showed him the bag. He froze. Then he said something I'll never forget. I grew up with Jason Lormer. He vanished 10 years ago. His backpack was never found. I left it there, on the counter, and drove the rest of the way home in silence. I don't share this story to frighten people. Individuals who loop back. Individuals who attempt to escape. I no longer use GPS, and if I ever catch sight of a sign that reads Mile 31 again, I'll keep driving until the sun comes up. If it ever does. When I first got assigned the night shift at Oak Ridge General Hospital, I was thinking it was just another regular job. Quiet corridors, quiet footsteps, minimal light. It was almost peaceful. I asked one of the nurses, a stoic woman named Janine. Peacefulness has a way of hiding things you don't want to see. Her tone dropped when she spoke it, as if she was afraid the walls would listen. It was my third night working when I first saw it. Ward C, the locked ward of the hospital. She simply stated, "They closed off that section years ago. Structural problems or something." But the way she was talking was not easy for me. I passed through Ward C again that night during rounds. I did not continue this time. The lights over the door flickered. I shook my head and left, attributing it to lack of sleep. And I could have sworn I heard breathing, not human, not mine. The machine had to be on the fritz. I called back to the front desk. It was low, raspy, and constant. Behind the padlocked double doors. I put my ear against it. Silence. But it became odd the next night. One of the keys that had rusted on it fit. My beeper beeped at 2:13 am. Code Blue Ward C. I glanced at the screen. That was not possible. That ward had been closed. "Hello, I believe I have an issue." I recently received a code in Ward C. Silence. And then a crackly voice. "We didn't send that." I decided to explore. For all the instincts screaming within me, I picked up the old key ring I had found in the storeroom and went to the locked doors. There was an old hospital bed in the corner of the room. The sheets looked freshly washed, but untouched by human hands. The doors creaked open. The interior hallway was colder than any place in the hospital. The yellow-stained walls. The lights that barely worked. I walked quietly down the hallway, the dust on the tile ringing out under my feet. The other rooms to either side were empty except for one, creaking slowly, as if weight was being put on it. Room C-306. The door was half open. There was a feeling of claustrophobia inside, as if the room was filled with invisible smoke. I felt like something changed when I walked in. I wasn't alone. Above the sink, there was a mirror. I could see a figure standing behind me. It was a woman. Hair tangled in blood, wide eyes, mouth open in fear. I looked around. I leaned back against the wall, thudding hard in my chest. I didn't care if someone saw I was done for the night. No one. But the bed, it was creaking. Just sad. Then, out of the blue, the lights flipped off with a loud pop. Total darkness surrounded us. It started in room C-306. A nurse was left alone with her patient. She did not make it. They say that she still wanders that room, waiting for someone to finish her rounds. I stopped, and then I heard it. That breathing again, right behind me. I spun around, waving my flashlight wildly. There was nothing there, until I looked into the mirror again. No return address. I had my hospital ID badge and a photo. And I'm sure I hear that same labored breathing. In the corner of my bedroom. A week after, I received a package in the mail. This time, her face was inches away from me. White, hollow, and twisted in anger. I ran. Back down the hallway, out the doors, slamming shut behind me. When I told Janine the next day, she wasn't surprised. She told me the truth. Ward C was shut down after there was a fire there a decade ago, she panted. I insisted, "Why didn't you tell me?" She replied, "Because once you see her, she also sees you." I quit that night, but there is more to it. A photo of me, standing in room C306 behind me. The same woman, her hand above the base of my shoulder. I burned the photo. I moved cities. But then sometimes, around 2:13 a.m., I still wake up gasping for breath. No one believes me, but I know what I saw. And I know she's still waiting. When I leased the creaking old boarding house at 9th and Holloway, I didn't expect much. It was inexpensive, quiet, and occupied by a courteous but boring landlady named Mrs. Elkins. She had only one rule: never open the door at the end of the hallway. I had assumed it was to storage. The building itself was old and creaky, full of mothball-scented, dusty old furniture and lost time. A little bit like a rat gnawing on wood from the inside out. It would start at 1:30 and continue for nearly an hour. The scratching was always at the end of the hall next to the off-limits door. The hallway she spoke of was dark, carpeted in faded red, and always colder than the rest of the house. I never objected to the rule. At least that is, until the scratching started. It began on my third night, gentle at first. I brushed it away initially. I even joked about it when I ran into Mrs. Elkins at breakfast. Must have a raccoon issue, I chuckled. She leaned forward and whispered, "Don't listen, whatever you're told." She smiled not. Instead, she replied, "There's nothing living in that room." That stopped me cold. I asked her what she was saying, and she just stared at her tea, tears in her eyes. I didn't sleep that night. The scratching returned louder, desperate. Then something unexpected occurred. Knocking. 3 slow knocks. Stop. Then 2 more. Pipes don't knock as if they wish to enter. What about the rest of them? I awoke from bed, my heart racing. No break-in. No witnesses. Only one peculiar detail was recorded by the police. The hallway door had been discovered open, though no one reported opening it. Probably the pipes, I complained, but I knew better. The next morning, I asked the other tenant, Greg, if he ever heard anything from the hallway. He seemed upset and inquired, "You're in room 4, aren't you?" I nodded. "You're the first one to spend more than 2 nights in there." I blinked. He only stated, "Ask Mrs. Elkins about Robert." I did that night. She spoke little, merely gave me a yellowed newspaper. Clipping from 1983. Missing. Holloway. Boarding house local man from. The article reported about a tenant by the name of Robert Kane who disappeared into thin air from room 4. I returned the clipping and asked, "Is that why I am not supposed to open it?" I was able to look into the hallway from behind the slit in my door. And I swear I saw the forbidden door open slowly. She faced me and said, "That door never stays closed for very long. It opens by itself and admits whoever it pleases." The knocking came back that night, but this time there was a difference. The fluorescent light tubes hummed and flashed. The door at the opposite end, once closed, now yawned open. A voice, soft, raspy male, "Let me out, please." Thin, spindly arms, too many joints. Red eyes glowed softly in the darkness. My breath fogged the air. My room dropped 20 degrees in temperature. It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a groan. It was a plea. I tensed up. The voice came back. "I'm still here. I never left." My hands shook as I flipped on my bedside light. I sat there in silence, against the wall, listening to the thing outside scratch its claws on the wood, muttering in a dry leaf voice. I wished I could shut my door, lock it, and burrow under the blankets like a child. But I didn't. I went outside. The hallway was abnormally long, tunnel-like. There was total darkness inside. "Hello?" I called out. A shadow moved. It crawled, yes, crawled down the corridor on its hands and knees. It wasn't Robert. It wasn't human. Once a portal to a basement room, long closed off since the first owner hanged himself in 1948. I backed away, but it stood, slowly, to its full, crooked height. Then it spoke. "You opened the door." I slammed mine shut and locked it, my own heart beating so hard that I was afraid it would burst. No marks, no sign. Only a strange deposit of black on the edge, room for one more. The following morning, the corridor was empty. The door was shut. I dug into the real estate records, that door in the hall. I packed my things and left without saying a word. Mrs. Elkins did not interrupt me. She merely nodded as though she had expected that. "You held out longer than most," she said, "especially if it knocks at first." Later in the year, ever since, one person disappears every decade or so. Others say it's cursed, others claim it feeds me. I always keep the door closed.